Have you ever heard of an event that the more you see it, the more real it feels? The story you're about to hear today isn't just an event. It's a mystery that has left the police, investigators, and even the truth itself speechless. Welcome to the suspense. Here, every word pushes open the door to the truth, and every silence hides unknown terror. And if you truly want to dive deep into these dark mysteries, then subscribe to the channel and stay with us. So, let's begin today's story. In the stillness of a March night, something terrifying unfolded behind the door of a small house in Shropshire. A violent struggle, quick, desperate, and unheard by anyone outside. When the chaos ended, one person lay lifeless on the floor, and the other was already shaping the lie she planned to tell. What happened in those final minutes shattered a family and revealed a truth darker than anyone imagined. Kyle Pew grew up in Newport, Shropshire, surrounded by people who had known him all his life. He was the kind of person who instantly lifted the mood in any room, always joking, always trying to make others smile, sometimes recklessly, loyal, protective, adventure-seeking. But everything changed when he met Amy. Amy was 5 years older. Their relationship burned fast and intensely. In public, they seemed inseparable, laughing, touching, wrapped up in each other as if nothing else existed. But behind closed doors, it was a different world entirely. Their marriage was volatile. Arguments over the smallest issues turned into explosive fights. Doors slammed, accusations flew, alcohol and drugs fueled the chaos. Nights out often ended in emotional damage and sometimes physical harm. Friends watched the cycle repeat itself over and over. By 2021, the marriage was falling apart. They separated multiple times, always returning to the same toxic pattern. Kyle confessed to close friends that he no longer felt safe. He feared the next argument would go too far. Amy, on the other hand, was fiercely possessive and increasingly unstable. Her jealousy bordered on obsession. March 22nd, 2022 began like many of their troubled days. Neighbors were used to hearing arguments from the Pew home. That evening, both had been drinking. Tension escalated quickly. Words turned into shouting, old wounds reopening. Betrayal, resentment, broken promises, all the fuel their relationship had been burning on for years. Inside their living room, the fight reached its peak. Kyle tried to walk away, but Amy wouldn't let him. She struck him, grabbed him, and pulled him back. The struggle intensified until Kyle was forced to the ground. What happened next was pieced together later through forensic evidence. Amy strangled Kyle with her bare hands. Strangulation is slow, brutal. It takes long, agonizing minutes. Moments where the attacker has time to stop, time to think. Amy didn't stop. She kept the pressure until Kyle's body went limp, and instead of calling for help, she waited. For almost 20 minutes, Amy did nothing. Those minutes could have saved his life. Instead, she used them to stage a scene. She arranged the house to look like Kyle had taken his own life. She practiced the story she'd tell. Only when everything matched her plan did she dial 999. At 11:17 p.m., the emergency operator heard Amy's frantic voice. She claimed Kyle had hanged himself. She cried, begged for help, performed chest compressions. To paramedics arriving minutes later, it looked like a genuine tragedy. Kyle was rushed to hospital, but the damage was irreversible. He died on March 23, 2022. For days afterward, Amy continued her act. She cried to friends, said Kyle had been depressed, said she found him too late. But the evidence didn't match her story. Kyle's injuries weren't those of a hanging victim. The marks on his neck were from hands, human hands. The internal damage was only consistent with manual strangulation. Investigators dug deeper. The supposed hanging setup didn't physically make sense. Amy's statements kept changing. Witnesses described years of violence. Phone records exposed the 20-minute gap. And the 999 call? Forensic audio experts detected deliberate emotional spikes, moments where her grief sounded rehearsed. Piece by piece, her story collapsed. In November 2024, Amy Pew was charged with murder. Her trial began in June 2025. In court, she appeared calm, nothing like the panicked woman on the emergency call. The prosecution dismantled her lies with science. Pathologists detailed the bruising patterns. Experts explained the slow, deliberate nature of strangulation. The timeline showed she waited long enough to ensure his death. The 999 call was replayed, this time sounding eerily performative. The defense tried to hold on to the suicide narrative, but the evidence was overwhelming. The jury returned a verdict: guilty of murder. On September 4th, 2025, Amy was sentenced to life in prison, with a minimum term of 13 years and 77 days before she can even apply for parole. Kyle's family finally received justice, though nothing could undo the loss of someone who had been full of life and loved by many. This case stands as a grim reminder of how dangerous toxic relationships can become, and how far some people will go to escape responsibility. Amy believed she could fool everyone. She believed the crime scene would convince investigators. She believed her 999 performance would erase the truth. She was wrong. Today, she sits behind bars, carrying the weight of what she did for the rest of her life.